You want to know something? Sinister 2, part of it was actually filmed in my county. A little bit of it was filmed in Kankakee County. Sinister 2 was quite the atrocity. And I wish part of our county wasn't filmed and engraved in this atrocity. Yeah, my theater is advertising it like crazy because part of it was filmed in Kankakee County, but I've noticed that quite a bit of movies that are partially filmed in our county tend to suck. I think there was another horror movie that was filmed partially near this area, and I think that was it Unborn? I think it was. So I guess I gotta look forward to if there's a horror movie that partially gets filmed here. It must be cursed because it tends to suck. But anyway, Sinister 2 is the sequel to, of course, Sinister, and so now the leading role of Sinister 2 is the comedic relief cop from Sinister. Now, if you've seen Sinister, you know how Bagul works, and you know that once a character moves into a house where a death occurred, Bagul will take a child, but not until that family moves to another house, and then a cycle happens and this chain appears. And so the cop is trying to destroy the chain by burning down houses. Meanwhile, this mother is trying to get away from her abusive husband and trying to get custody over the children, and she moves into a house where she might not get discovered by the husband and his swarm of people trying to find her. And so, of course, she moves into a house where, surprise, surprise, a Bagul murder happened. Which I guess there's a second chain of houses that Bagul must have started with children, and yeah, so that's why there's a Sinister 2. But of course the cop discovers another chain of Bagul-related murders, and so he investigates and has to try to help this family now. Now, it's not a complete atrocity to filmmaking. There's still plenty of things that I did enjoy in the movie. First off, the romantic subplot with the cop and the mother falling in love, and that worked. Now, I'm not saying the romantic subplot of Sinister 2 is flawless. It's definitely but it's more realistic than plenty of other romantic subplots and other horror movies. Acting wise, I think the mother is easily the best actor. The cop did okay. It's not to a point where I would say it was horrible acting, but he's trying to find a balance between the comedic relief that he was famous for in Sinister while trying to be a serious lead for the movie. And he's trying to find a certain balance. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Plus, there are plenty of scenes where he's a little too awkward to the point that it's just And while the abusive father was a very stereotypical role and nothing complex about it, I think the actor that did it handled it really well. The worst of the actors, I think you can guess, is the kids. And I don't think it's horrible acting-wise, I just think the characters of all the kids in the movie, the two kids that are the people still alive, and then the dead kids that are trying to integrate one of the kids for Bagul's sort of kid group, I think all of them were just really annoying. But when you see the first scene with the kids and they're in a supermarket and they're shooting each other with toy guns while running around in this grocery store and just being complete dicks and really annoying and just like, no, I got you, no, you didn't say the word, you didn't make the noise bang, I got you, you didn't bang. Oh my god. The first scene of the kids is them arguing whether or not they shot each other in a toy gun fight in a grocery store, and it goes downhill from there. Now, there were a few scenes where I thought, hey, that was actually handled well, and one of the scenes that I really enjoyed was when the abusive father finds the house that they're living in, and he comes with all these cop buddies to try to take his kids away from the wife, and he rolls up. Well, thankfully our main hero, our cop guy from the first Sinister, is there, and he talks to the cops and is like, hey, I know what you're doing is illegal, you don't have the sheriff's permission, yada yada yada, and I was in this case, you don't want attention, and he talks the cops out of it by being smart because he used to be a cop. Now this scene, very cliched, you've seen this kind of scene in plenty of other movies, but I think in Sinister 2 it was legitimately handled well, and I actually enjoyed that scene. Plus, I think the whole conflict at the end, which thankfully wasn't shown at all in the trailer, which I gotta commend the trailer for a little bit, was actually handled pretty well, and while not too horrific and not as suspenseful as I would like, there was enough tension that kept me entertained. The many times it shows Bagul just standing around. Now, I think with Sinister, one of the weakest things in the original Sinister was when we finally got to see Bagul. He wasn't scary to me. He just looked like some big wrestler in a Halloween mask, and it wasn't that frightening. And yeah, I get that direction because it still made it look like maybe he's just some guy in a mask, a serial killer element. But then when you turns into the supernatural thing, then you realize, oh, it's actually supernatural. Unfortunately, we know what he looks like, and so when you have number 2, they throw him in front and center because we already know as an audience what Bagul is. And unfortunately, it just isn't scary when it's just a wrestler-looking dude in a mask just standing around. Now, one of the really, really atrocious things in Sinister 2 is the videos. Sinister 2, they just look like something taped off of an HD camera. Yeah, and then tried to put a grainy filter over it, but it still looks clear and crisp and HD and doesn't look believable as an 8mm film. Not to mention, several of them, if not all of them, have some sort of CGI element in it and done really cartoony, really poorly, really ugly. I thought it was cartoony in No Escape. Sinister 2 takes the cake. It is the cheapest looking CGI you've ever seen, especially the frickin' crocodile. Yeah, there's a tape where somehow the kid manages to get his family hung upside down on a branch over a swamp, and then this alligator or crocodile comes up. It's really cartoony, fakish looking crocodile comes up and just like eats them all, and very few of them actually felt like they would have belonged in a Sinister movie and among the other snuff films. I think the only 3 that I can commend is 1, the last one that you know is going to be about the main family. That would have been good if it actually succeeded. And then the 2 that they show that honestly do feel like Sinister snuff film sort of things is this one where this family gets buried in the snow and left out to freeze to death. But even in that one, it didn't quite mesh, and it just felt stupid because the family, you could see the family tied up as they're in this pit, and you see the kids shoveling up snow and putting it in. Well, this family are awake now, and they're squirming around. You can see them. But they're tied in a way where they could easily just sit up and get the fuck out of the pit. And they don't do it. Because wouldn't they have to be dead, right? And then the other one that felt like just the right amount of over the top was this one where they have their family tied up in the kitchen. They turned on the sink, and so there's water everywhere. The kid has rubber boots on, and so electrocutes the family. The only bad thing about that is they had to implement CGI in that stupid thing too. When they're getting shocked, they did this really poor, really bad CGI over the skin, making it look like they get burned, and it looks like they have pepperoni on their arms, basically. It's so bad. Plus, the ending makes no sense whatsoever. It comes out to be a happy ending, even though the kid responsible for trying to kill them is taken away, and it's still ultimately a happy ending, but at the same time they have to have this one little clip because it wouldn't be a horror movie if there wasn't one last jump scare, and so they have a jump scare at the very end of the film, pretty much exact replication of the ending of Sinister, except it makes no sense because they have won. It's a happy ending. Why is he... It's just a forced jump scare to have a last minute scare at the end of the movie. Sinister 2 has a lot of things in common with another horror movie sequel that came out this year. That came out in January. It has a lot of similarities to The Woman in Black 2. In both movies, the best actress of the film was the main girl. They both had a believable romantic subplot that Woman in Black 2 did even better with, because those two actually had a better chemistry, and that actor was actually better than the actor in Sinister 2. Both of them stretched the limited rules of the supernatural experiences in their franchises, except Woman in Black 2 broke it even worse than Sinister 2. They both end in happy endings, and then they both have a very unnecessary jump scare that basically just completely copies the last jump scare in the first films. Woman in Black 2 honestly is way better than Sinister 2. I can understand people not liking Woman in Black 2. I can understand why people think it's boring. Honestly, it's not a flawless film. I don't like it. But at least in Woman in Black 2, I could see potential. It felt like a movie where all the good stuff was there. Everything that could have made it a good sequel was there. It's just like they just tried to sabotage it somehow by just throwing random jump scares to the point where there's no more atmospheric scares, there's no more... It's just not as scary as it could have been. It's just terrible. Sinister 2 doesn't have what Woman in Black 2 had. It doesn't feel like a movie that I could see its potential. I could see that it was just sabotaged and messed up in a way that it prevented it from being a good movie. I'm not going to talk about Sinister 2 anymore. I just don't want to. I'm going to give Sinister 2 half a star. Still better than Hot Tub Time Machine 2. Still way better than Hot Pursuit. But quite honestly, Sinister 2 is one of the worst films I've seen this year. So, did you see Sinister 2? What did you think about it? Go ahead and comment. If not, what is the worst horror movie sequel you have ever seen? Worst horror movie sequel. Mine would probably be the horror movie sequel I could not even finish watching, and that was Wrong Turn 3. Was it Wrong Turn 3? It was whichever one of the stupid direct-to-DVD Wrong Turn sequels had the prison bus and something like that. It was horrible. I couldn't finish it. As always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was Just My Opinion.